Welcome to Jackie's Proof Animals Have Souls and Psychics show. This is show 14 on Passionate World Talk Radio Network, a subsidiary of Global Media Network. I'm an author of 3 books, Moses and Jesus the Shamans, and my Proof Animals Have Souls series, Proof Animals Have Souls and 500 Plus Celebrities Go Vegetarian. They're paperbacks and ebooks, and welcome to new listeners, and I do invite comments and questions that will be dealt with in future shows. I'm a psychical researcher and vegetarian for compassionate reasons. Today, I welcome Helen Haygarth to the show. Helen is 58, a mum of 4 adult children and a granny to 3. Helen was born in Walton, Liverpool, UK. And Liverpool is of the Beatles fame. Helen is a holistic therapist, qualified in aromatherapy, reflexology, Indian head massage, hopi ear candles, Reiki, Bach flower remedies, a hypnotherapist and a neuro-linguistic practitioner. Helen is also part of the Federation of Spiritual Healers. So welcome, Helen, to the show.
Thank you, Jackie, for inviting me.
Your pleasure. I'd like to ask you, when did you become aware of starting your spiritual journey?
I think it was really April 1999. There seemed to be a sudden shift in me. Something traumatic went on and I left my husband, but it was like something snapped in the air on my right ear.
So you heard something?
I think, yeah, it was...
Telepathically?
Kinesthetically, but there was a absolute, like I'm snapping my fingers. It said, enough now, move.
And that was you to go? And
yeah,
so you left your husband at that point?
That was for me to go, yes.
Yes.
I'm due to that. My mum gave me a book.
Yes.
It was in May 1999. It was the Deepak Chopra book, The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. And I think it was through watching her and following what she did, it led me to start inquiring and looking for a new career.
That's interesting. So that's what people are like when they have these near-death experiences. They often go through a big shift and start things that were meaningless to them, like jobs or families or situations, they just walk away from. So that's very interesting. Mm-hmm. And so you sensed it really, you sort of felt it was time to go. So what made you take the holistic therapy route? You seem to have a whole wide range there of healing therapies at your fingertips. So you've studied hard. So what made you take the holistic therapy route?
It's really quite strange. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I worked mainly with children from childcare, working in a creche, working in a playgroup, had 4 children of my own. And I was just looking for something to do and found in the paper a massage course in Southport College and said, I think I'd like to do that. And it took the first day of being there. I realised something just went, yes, this is it. Yeah. This is it.
So you'd found your niche.
Yeah, even though I was so shy and thinking, oh my gosh, what on earth am I doing? Something else overrid it and went, no, I'm staying with this. And then it's quite surprising, one thing leads after another. And so,
were the courses at different colleges or?
No, all the courses were at Southport College. Well, apart from the hypnotherapy and NLP ones weren't. But in the early days, it was all Southport College, and I fit it round the children at school and picking them up and whatever. It was delightful that I could work around them, because I didn't think I'd be able to manage being a mum of 4, because there's
a lot.
there's 10 years between my eldest and my youngest, so it was from one. The eldest was 12 at the time, the youngest was 2, so I was really blessed, actually.
And how long were you married for?
I was married for 14 years before that.
A long time too. So do you ever see, sense, hear spirit animals and spirit people?
I wouldn't say too often. It's more like, and certainly not seeing them, but sometimes it's like a kinesthetic awareness that they're there. Sometimes I see Oscar.
Yes, you mentioned a moment ago that there's Oscar sitting at your feet here.
Yeah, that's my youngest
in your
son's
house.
cat. He died a few years ago. So sometimes it's him, usually tripping me up or something, I think.
Just popping in.
That's it. And it wasn't me who saw actually our last cat. It's one of my clients who came through, who's the most beautiful soul. She's got a beautiful energy about her, who's very intuitive. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, she's terrified in this life of showing her gift or even wanting her gift. And as she left my house, she looked down and said, "Oh, there's a little cat sitting outside your door." And the day before, our cat Casper had been put down. He was old and he wasn't very well. And she'd said, "Oh, this little tabby's sitting here," and she was quite sad and mortified that she might have upset me by saying that. But it was the most beautiful thing that the cat was there, and she didn't see that it would bring me comfort. Mm-hmm. You know, she just thought it would bring me pain. But,
it's a shame. So she saw the cat as real as a physical cat.
Oh, she did.
And then she realised her error, and then she was sorry that she'd seen it. And yet it was such a happy joy to you to know the cat's well. Mm. You also mentioned you thought you'd seen a golden wolf.
Yeah, that was when I was working just with some spiritual healers in a local hotel in Southport, the Royal Clifton. And I was working with a guy, and just next to him, I thought I saw a golden wolf. That's who I thought. But at the end of the night, when we all grouped together and I was chatting to other healers, spiritual healers, if that's what you have to call people, one of the guys there, Ron, he said to me, "Oh no, John's dog died a week before. You'd have seen, the essence of John's dog." So that was really.
So when you thought it was a golden wolf, it was actually a golden.
It was a dog, whatever dog.
What type? Was it a Labrador?
I don't know. It might have been. It might have been, but I don't know. No.
Okay. Who's influenced your spiritual philosophy?
Lots of people, but the first one to influence it was definitely my mum.
Yes.
She did. I watched from later life. Yeah, I watched her. But other than that, the first person who was when I went online, when my mind was so busy and cluttered, and I just Googled, I think, how to stop the mind thinking, and it came up with a guy called Barry Long. Uh-huh. Now I think he died in the 1970s, but he was a great influence. And then from that, it was the Eckhart Tolle, Muji, very powerfully, Bentino Massaro, great influence. He's very contemporary at the moment. There's also...
You mentioned he's Dutch. And then you mentioned...
There's Cryon as well.
Yes.
Cryon's definitely a channel and comes through as a channel if anyone wants to look them up.
Oh, right.
They're great. And there's also Kyle Cease, who used to be an American stand-up comic. But he's now he's a definitely spiritual teacher. And I think you're drawn to these people when it's time for you to do that.
Yes. You say when the student's ready, the teacher will appear.
Quite right, yes.
Before the show, you said your parents did the very best they could, but your childhood was quite traumatic, and it left you feeling fearful throughout your childhood. Do you feel that fear led you to your spiritual journey?
It most definitely did, and it's sad because everyone's beautiful in their own way and have upbringings, and we're influenced by so many things. My mum was a great influencer. My dad he was a rock. an absolute rock, but there wasn't much verbal communication in our house. And for some reason, from being born, I was always in fear. And I don't know what of. It just seemed that anything and everything terrified me, whether it was cousins, being at home, going to school, going to nursery. There was nothing that didn't terrify me. Though my brother said once that he read a diary, and I don't remember it, when I was about 9 or 10, that I was talking about when Mum was going to leave. And when I was 13, she did leave us, and we didn't really connect again until I was 36. But I think it's the great traumas in our life that we look and say, I've had enough of this fear, that we start searching for something else.
So would you say you were having a psychic prediction that your mother was going to leave?
I don't know whether I came through that knowing that she was going to abandon us as such, but just didn't know when. But I'm not blaming my physical mum for it, because she's here now and I love her to bits. And it's right. I think we're given what we need to help us in our individual spiritual journey. We are given exactly what's needed. So there's no blame, there's no shame, there's no nothing in what happens.
Well, that's interesting. Would you like to say something about your spiritual philosophy?
Okay, my spiritual philosophy is I always say there's two I's, there's two I ams. There's this I am as in a physical body. This is Helen doing the physical things, but the real I am is that I am. It's the universal I am. How did you say it before?
We were trying to put it into words, what you were telling me. The unity of everything and the unity of nothing blended together. The unity of everything and the absence of everything, but blended together. And I suppose if you think of it like that, you've got the space, the tremendous space out there in the cosmos, and then you've got the planets and the stars, but you wouldn't have the planets and the stars if you didn't have the space, and it's all part of the unity. That's
it. It's we are everything, but we are not that. We are no thing as well. It's like you can't have noise unless you have silence for the noise to be in. You can't have things. You can't have clouds unless there's space to be in it. And we are all, I don't know, I don't care whether you call it God, spirit, divine, energy, source, whatever we are all that. So that's why it's that I am, that I am. We are all every single thing, whether it's phenomenal or no thing.
That's interesting. It's when you mentioned about your childhood, there's a parallel in your childhood to mine. As a child, I used to climb into bed with my older sister. And then before long, my older sister would call down to my mum and say, Jackie's got her worries again. And my mum would come up to find me in floods of tears. And that went on night after night that I remember. I couldn't tell you how many months, or if it was longer than that went on. And my older sister was very nonchalant. Oh, Jackie's got her worries again. So it was this nightly crying, and I just couldn't tell my mum when she'd ask me what's wrong, and I just couldn't tell my mum that I felt if I told her it would actually happen. So I was frightened then to even tell her what was upsetting me. And finally, I do remember telling her I was afraid she or Dad or both would leave me or die. Soon after, divorce was announced, and my dad lost touch with us for many, many years, decades. But when I was a child, I dreamt I was the only one at his funeral. And in latter years, I was reunited with my father in hospital in the dying room on his deathbed. Anyway, I prayed to God that I wouldn't cry when I saw him, and obviously I did. And I told the nurse, is there any chance I can take him home with me? We'd finally reunited, and I did take him home with me, and it was a long, arduous journey to get him home because he looked like he was something out of a coffin. He was emaciated. He'd collapsed in a duffel coat on a very hot day, overdosed on warfarin, a blood thinner. We had 18 months together, and when he did pass away, I was the only one at his funeral, just like the dream I'd had when I was about 9 years old. So I wonder, when I look back on that, was that predictive as a child, that I knew something was in the offing of my mum and dad, or mum or dad leaving me or dying? And then that dream afterwards, when I woke up about age 8 or 9, that I was the only one at my dad's funeral. And then all those years later, in my 50s, then I was the only one at my dad's funeral. And it was because I'd moved to Scotland, and when I took him home, I took him back to Scotland with me. And so his friends who'd passed away, I was the only one at his funeral. So it just makes you wonder as a child, do we have these predictive experiences?